I've been asked a lot in the past kind of who's influenced me as a coach. When I was younger, I didn't think there was that many people. It was more a case of searching for different identities from different people and trying to make something as my own. Of course, in recent years, my time at Leeds is something I have to discuss, and working for Marcelo Bielsa was an unbelievable experience. And I think now, since I've left that position and obviously moved here, the more time I've had to reflect, I can really see the learning that I've taken from that. Previously to that, I worked in Spain with a young manager called Diego Marino. He was a very eccentric character, really focused kind of on that Spanish model of positional play. And that certainly had a big influence on the way I think as well. So kind of the last two roles previous to this were really, really important in shaping that. I think previous to that, my experiences of being in, obviously, America for 5 years when I was young, building philosophy in that country, and my work with England Football Association as a coach educator, and the work I did back at home is kind of all these small experiences I think have influenced me, rather than one kind of target person who's really, really been the one that I've looked for. But certainly in the last couple of years, Marcelo is a huge influence. And saying that, the opportunity to work with him was really a bit of a dream come true, because back in 2010, when I was in America, I was studying his team at the time, not realising how much influence it was having. And then obviously to be able to work with him almost a decade later is something pretty special. I think the best way to describe me as a coach is probably adaptable. I've tried to seek as many different learning experiences as possible through my journey so far, and working in different cultures and in different age groups, and even in the male and female game has given me what I hope is that adaptability to cope with any situation. My philosophy is that I don't really believe in philosophies, if I'm being honest. I think if you to ask anybody kind of in the coaching world what their philosophy was, it would be the same. Most people want to play out from the back, press high, maintain possession, win the ball back quickly. I think what I've realised over the last few years is it's more about the concepts and ideas within a philosophy that are really key. So if you were to take Sarri and Pep, they both have the same philosophy, but their teams look completely different. I think once you start to understand how a concept can change the way a team operates, then I think that really has a big influence on kind of where your coaching goes and how your development kind of continues. So yeah, for me, like, philosophy is a little bit of a nice way to put it, but I like to be aggressive in the way we do things. I think stretching people to the limits and pushing them as much as we can is what's needed, and kind of pushing the players outside of their comfort zone to grow and develop is really, really important in every aspect, in training or in games. So I'd like to think we started to do something a little bit on that way here. When I first moved to America, I was 20, so I studied a degree in coaching with sport and exercise science, and it was actually a little bit more theoretical than the practical side. So I probably missed out on many coaching hours, but was learning a lot about biology, psychology, all those sorts of things. So when the opportunity came in the summer, when I was going to graduate, was to go to America and do like a 6-week coaching camp. Many people went to do it, and I just thought it was a good opportunity, obviously, to go abroad, plus apply a lot of the learning from the degree. And yeah, I got there and did reasonably well, I think. Like, it was quite popular within the group, and could see my own coaching developing really quickly. And you kind of got thrown into the mix where you worked with a club who had multiple teams, and you coached all their teams for them throughout the week. So very quickly you had to, develop working with under 19s, under 10s, under 15s, and so on, and really be resourceful about how you adapted the session to make it appropriate. So that was a real big challenge, and that continued for a few weeks, and I got invited back, and we continued, and it went from a short period into a year long. Moved to Chicago and was working in cooperation with the Chicago Fire in the MLS, and then from there moved to a club in Michigan with a couple of other coaches who were my friends as well. And it was a small club. Basically, there were 2 larger clubs in the area it was just the kids who didn't really get into those two clubs who were pretty powerful. And within 2 to 3 seasons, we'd built the club up, both on the male and female side, to have 2 or 3 teams every age group, from under 9s to under 19s. Being able to bring more coaches in, offer coach education to the community, was a real huge project. And it grew so quickly over that kind of 3 to 4 year period. But unfortunately for me, the visa application process after 5 years changed, and I couldn't stay, so I had to go back home. It was a little bit of a shock because it wasn't a planned return. There was an issue with the visa of how long I'd been there, and my whole life was in the States. Everything I owned was there. I had nothing really in England, of course, other than family. And it was a bit of a shock return. I ended up coming home and living in my mother's house. She supported me through quite a difficult time. And maybe for the next couple of years, I had to pick up some part-time work, some part-time coaching. Also, I had the highest qualification I could get in the States, pretty much. And when I returned in England, they said that it wasn't applicable, that it wasn't transferable. So I had to begin the coaching pathway again from the very bottom. So that process was like a rebuilding for a few years, and it was quite a challenge. To cut a long story short, by the end of that couple of years, I had 5 part-time jobs, 4 in football, 1 in an office just to pay my rent. And I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, working 3 jobs in a day, getting home at 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, excess of 80 hours. But for me, it was really important that I got the hours on the grass to continue to develop my coaching. So I sacrificed a lot to ensure that I was constantly coaching different levels, different kind of disciplines. And as a consequence, I'd worked at York City, I worked for the University in York as well. I coached futsal, I coached football, I still stayed involved with the women's team. Obviously, they had the men's side. Took futsal as well, just to try and develop as much as I could for myself. And things were starting to get a little bit stretched because obviously I was working so many hours for so many days of the year. And I could see the development happening pretty quickly, but it was also quite tiresome to be working so much. And yeah, I moved from York to Leeds in a part-time capacity after meeting the academy manager at Leeds. Really enjoyed it there. And then an opportunity came to go to Spain. And now, when I educated other coaches, when I was working as a coach educator for the FA, the first thing I always used to write on the board was be comfortable being uncomfortable. That was the first thing people would see when they came in. And people always used to ask me what I wanted to do. Did I want to be a manager? And at the time I was thinking, I'm not sure it's really for me. I really enjoy the interaction with the players and being on the grass. Maybe like an assistant manager would be a good position. And I got a phone call saying, can you go to Spain? The opportunities come. There's a few things prior that had fallen through, but this opportunity came. To be an assistant manager in Spain. Do you want to go? I was like, well, number one, it's uncomfortable. And number two, it's the role I'd spoken about. So I'd be a bit of a hypocrite to say no. And I'd also kind of manufactured my life in a way that allowed me to move. I was always ready for an opportunity if it came. So nothing was going to stop me taking it. And yeah, I basically had a week to decide if I was going. I said yes, packed my bags and went. And my expectation was that there were more people who would speak English, but I was in the city for a year, and I think I only met 4 people who could speak English properly. Luckily for me, one of the other assistants studied in Newcastle in England for 3 months, so he had some command of the language. But the first 3 months were so difficult. I couldn't speak a single word of Spanish. I didn't know any football language, and I arrived thinking, I'm pretty confident in what I can do. I can add something to this project. I can help develop the players. And just going back to doing a simple warm-up that you do with the 10-year-olds, I couldn't deliver that because I literally couldn't transfer what was in my head to the guys. So yeah, that was a really big challenge. But to be honest, by the end of the season, I was really fluent at Spanish, and in that world, obviously in the football environment and getting in and around town, those sorts of things. I could go for dinner with the players and hold a conversation all night. So I was quite happy with that. Really good season. And then at the end, they asked me to stay. So it was a 1-year deal, and 2 clubs actually asked me to stay. And it was a really tempting offer. But there was one thing that I wanted back in England. There was obviously the reserve team role at Leeds, and luckily for me, I ended up going back and getting that position. So, of course, at the same time, Marcelo came to the club, and for me, it was a perfect kind of marriage of opportunity. No, of course, my own personal development is really important. It's something that I think I've shown over the last 10 years is something I'm really committed to, and the opportunity to come here came about through some contacts I'd had for more than 1 season. And I actually followed the club the year before I arrived. I watched most of the games as much as I could back in England, and stayed in contact with some people inside the club. And for me, the coaching side of the game has always been really important to me. And of course, you can always develop you can always improve, and I strive to do that every day. But I would like to think I'm relatively competent at the coaching side on the grass. I can deliver to a good standard, and I'll continue to try and be better. The flip side is I've never really had the exposure for kind of the things off the grass. So the media side, working with the boardroom, with agents and the players, those sorts of things in terms of my own development, I've not been exposed to enough. I have a pretty good understanding, and I think, again, I'm relatively competent, but I want to continue to develop, and I want to continue to be better in everything I do. And through some conversations I had with people inside the club, this opportunity looked to me like that would give me an avenue to develop those things a little bit more than if I stayed in England. So I've never been afraid to go abroad. I've never been afraid to go somewhere different. Like I said, being uncomfortable is part and parcel of it. So yeah, the lure of coming here was interesting in that sense, that I would maybe expose myself to those other areas, and also to have maybe more of an influence in some of the decision making or cultural things as well. So I saw it as a really healthy opportunity for me, but also that I could bring something for the club as well. So not from a selfish point of view that I would just be taking, but that I actually thought I could have a positive influence for the club. I'd like to think that the kind of plethora of opportunities and experiences I've had in the past, like it gives me something different to most of the coaches. I've worked with some fantastic coaches who've been in one position for 10, 20, 30 years, and they're unbelievable at their role. But I like to think that my experiences of working in different environments and different cultures and seeing different things inside football allow me to be a little bit more flexible in my approach. Of course, the work I did at Leeds for the last couple of years is unquestionable. The quality of the manager, everyone sees him as world class, and the work was plentiful, but very, very good. And now I can really see the genius in the things that he did. And coming into a new environment, you can see kind of gaps where things can be improved. And you'd like to think that you can take the things you've learned or you've been exposed to in the past and try and fit them into the new environment. So coming in here, of course, many, many good things happening at the club. I know we've not been in the best position in the last few seasons. And for me, I saw that as a real challenge to come in and try and help kind of change the mentality and the culture. That was my own personal kind of feeling, and my own personal mission was to try and come to the club that's fighting a little bit and maybe a little bit more protective and allow us to be a little bit more confident and express ourselves. So I hope, or I try to, through daily conversations and interactions, give off that sense that we don't need to be worried about fighting relegation. We need to be more confident about being higher at the table and expressing ourselves and being a little bit more free. And then, of course, underpinning that is all the work that goes into it. So trying to offer new ideas to the staff, trying to offer new ideas to the management, trying to make suggestions on how we can improve things on and off the pitch that I've seen have worked at a high level before are things that I think I can bring to the table. And, of course, whether they're accepted or not is not my decision. But, one thing is to bring them, and then the other thing is to adapt them to the culture of not just the country, but the club itself. So I think so far things have gone really well. I think we're in a good place, and the staff work really, really well together. So I'd like to think I've had a positive contribution. I hope I have. To be involved in the club, for me, and when I say club, I mean the whole club, is really important. I haven't just come here to work with the first team. Of course, that's my goal and my main objective. But to be successful in what I'm doing, I need to have a good overview of everything that's going on, not just in the club, but in the community as well. And I see it as a privilege, honestly, to be able to work in this position, and I think I should have to give back as well. I try as often as I can to watch as many trainings from the age groups. Of course, I'm fortunate that the under-19s train in the same location, so I can watch them, and I spend a lot of time looking at the guys. I've made sure that at home I have space for an office so I can go back and I can continue to work when I get home. Of course, the only reason I came here is for the position. So to have a greater understanding of how we can bring the club together a little bit more, and the management team have done such a fantastic job of bringing the departments together this season. For me, I see my responsibility a little bit more about bringing the players closer. The youth department have been fantastic, and I'd like to kind of challenge them a little bit more to push the level of their players to try and meet the level of ours and close that gap between. It's something obviously I experienced at Leeds, where the integration of the youth team and the first team were seamless. It became very common for younger players to come up and also senior players to go down and play with the second team and the reserve team, that it wasn't seen as a punishment. And that's the kind of culture I think we need to get to at this club. And there are huge benefits where the relationships from the young ones can build. They can see the standard and the level necessary. And for me, that's why I go and watch. Again, we're not a club with, millions and millions and millions of krona to spend, and we have to look from inside. If we're doing a good job developing the younger players, then why not give them an opportunity? I think we've already seen this season a couple of the younger guys have been given a chance, and there's certainly a couple more waiting who have the potential to take a chance. So for me, the way we train and the style we want to play is really quite specific. And if we can bridge the gap with the youth department and they're open to seeing those things, then we can best prepare those guys to come through and come up. So from inside the club, for me, building that link is really, really important. And I've been fortunate enough to go and take a couple of the games when some of the senior players have gone down, and we've had a great time with those younger players coming up and stepping up to the mark as well. So I think there's already been a positive impact there. In terms of the community, it's fantastic. Drammen's a really nice place, and it's not the biggest place in the world, and you can really feel the love for the club. We delivered not the performance we wanted in the last game, but to see over 6,000 people here in the stadium, especially after Corona, is unbelievable. And we're also grateful for the support that you see these people coming in and cheering the team on, and it makes you want to give something back. If I can go to a school and help with the kids and inspire them to come to the games, inspire them to play more, then that's what we want. So a football club is the heartbeat of a community for me. In England, it's smothered with clubs all over the country. We're very fortunate at home that it's a small place with lots of clubs. It's not so much the case in Norway, and to have a club like this where you can really feel the community tied to it is so important to give back. It's so important to get out there and see people and listen to their feedback and inspire the young ones and just share what we have, because at the end of the day it's a beautiful game and people want to see it and enjoy it, and we want to give back to them.